Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started in about 20 seconds. So thank you all for joining.
Absolutely.
So the question that we got was talk about our career path. How do we got on it? Do you want to go into that or no?
Sure. So I know after the introductions, there's a slight change given the we're kind of changing things. After you introduce yourselves, we can go into the questions. I think you received the question. The very first one is tell us about your path to building a business. How did you land on that journey? And then there's like a few others, and we'll sort of just follow that path, if that's okay with everyone. Okay.
So intro, and then we'll do path.
Yeah.
What I heard. Clear.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then we'll have Q&A at the end.
Then you can go ahead and kick us off.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Really appreciate you attending the inaugural UCSB Black Alumni and Student Connect weekend. We have a session, how to start a successful business, how to build a successful business. And we have panelists for you. Brian Martinez, Stephen Miles, Justin Morgan, Markelle Morris. And my name is Cindy Chinadudoka. I am on the UCSB Board of Directors and a Senior Product Manager. And with that, I will kick it off to Brian Martinez to get us started with introductions.
Sounds good. So I'm Brian Martinez. I graduated from UCSB in 2009. Business and entrepreneurship was my focus. That's what I do in my career. There's been some things that have happened along the way. Most of what I've done in my career has been on the tech side. So whether that's running my own company in tech or working for like tech giants. And today, like I, left a big tech company, started another startup. Again, we'll talk about that and like what I was thinking along that journey. But beyond that, I also do a ton of personal development work. I like fly around the country and run personal development sessions. That's like what I'm most passionate about. Yeah, I'm excited to be here and to give back and answer any questions you have based on my experience that would support anyone that's on the call today. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Brian. And with that, we'll move on to Stephen Miles to give us an introduction.
Hello all, I'm Stephen Miles. I actually graduated in 2005, but the course system kicked over my last film class in 2006. So I guess technically then. I was for currently right now, serial entrepreneur, but I'm focusing on writing right now. Just published a kid's book, my first, and it's more kids book geared around for conversations kicking off with adults. Fintech founder as well. Started that company in 2017. Still trudging along with that. But the two things that are, I guess I can put on my hat would be, in the tech space as well as in author. So yeah, I'm really thrilled to be on the call today, being able to kind of lend some of my experience and, share some of this conversation with you guys based off of what I've gone through in my life. So, it's always kind of cool to kind of give back and be a mentor in a pseudo way, whether it's direct or indirect. So thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, I guess we'll be talking.
Thank you, Stephen. And with that, we'll hand it over to Justin.
Hi, everybody. My name is Justin Morgan. I graduated in 2007. I am an attorney, advisor, and I'm also a real estate broker in the state of California. I am a partner at a law firm called Wood & Delgado, and we work with private practice healthcare professionals and entertainment professionals throughout the country.
Thank you so much, Justin. And with that, we'll hand it over to Markelle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Markelle Morris. I'm the seasoned alumna on the panel. I'm graduated in '93, and my company is Futures in Motion, and I'm a career counselor and a job search coach. And I work with established professionals who are at a place where they are searching for meaning and purpose in their careers. Perhaps they've achieved great things, but they're meaning is not there anymore. And they want to find ways to align how they make a living with their personal goals. And so I help them do that. I help them clarify what it is that they want to do, how they want to do it, the lifestyle that they want to have, how they want to show up in the workplace or in society, really. And I do one-on-one coaching. I do executive coaching. I have written several books and guides, created classes around that. And I do consulting for various organizations in their employee development groups. I speak a lot, and I'm a writer as well.
Thank you so much, Markelle. And with that, we will begin, open the floor for the panel conversation. Very first question, and this is for all the panelists. Can you tell us about your path to building a business, how you landed on that journey after graduating from UCSB? And we'll begin with Brian.
Thanks, Cindy. My journey started while I was at Santa Barbara. Actually, I was in the TMP program when they first started their entrepreneurship program in the engineering school. And I did one of their first business competitions and won for best business plan. So like I was already, like the entrepreneur was already in me. I think like I took a sidebar to that and I went into public accounting after undergrad and hated it. Like no knocks on any accountants on the call, but like I just hated it. And after doing that for a couple of years, like I realized that, life wanted to box me in the accountant box. And I wanted to reclaim my soul. So I started a company and that's what started it. It was a tech business. And at the time, like you couldn't raise money in LA. So I moved up to the Bay because that's where the financing was. So that started my journey in like meeting investors, raising the money, like scaling capital, and just like all of that process started from there. And then like, after running companies, like going to work for larger companies in tech, same thing, like my roles in those companies were always entrepreneurial based. Like they didn't put me in like a heavy ops role. It was always like growth, entrepreneurship, scrappy. And so I think that's just, part of who I am. I think most interesting is like, tech gets really comfortable. You can stay there for a long time and like make a lot of money. But at the end of the day, like, I realized I wasn't going to be happy unless I was building something new. So then I left again to start building all over again. So fresh start, really exciting, but like, definitely learned a lot more and I'm using those learnings now. But when I say, I want to say something about this, like, I don't think I landed on entrepreneurship. I think at some point in my life, entrepreneurship landed on me. And sometimes I wish I could do something else. Like I wish I could work a normal job. I don't know how to. No matter where I am, I'm coming up with new ideas. And like, it's my greatest strength and my greatest weakness at the same time. So even if I'm working on something, there's like other ideas in my mind at the same time. And I have to learn to, have the discipline to focus on it. So I think that's been part of my path and my journey. And I think part of what makes me like stuff like this, helping others, helps like bring down that desire to like jump and do something else. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brian.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it. And now, so Stephen, tell us about your path to building a business and how did you land on that journey after graduating from UC Santa Barbara?
Yeah, so for me, I think my path started back in high school, and I was that kid in high school that we'd have a paper due, and I'd write it that morning. So the writing ability was always there. I always kind of took it for granted. Still getting, I guess, nothing less than like a B+ or something. And I realized I could skate by doing this. But then I thought, what happens if I apply some energy to that? So I went through high school, went to City College, transferred to Santa Barbara, and my focus was actually as a film major and dramatic arts major. And my heart's desire was to become a screenwriter. So life has other plans. And a big part of that was I didn't take advantage of any internships or externships. And I found myself just graduating. And what was funny was that I was the only one in my family to make it to college at that level. And all my mom prepared me for was to go to school and get a degree. So there was literally like no direction after that happened. So a lot of life happened in between then, from 24, 25 to right now being 39. And that process for me was, a lot of odd jobs, working retail. And then I really realized that I couldn't control my time or have any autonomy if I'm not the one signing my own check. So somebody's always going to kind of command what it is that I'm doing, right? So I realized that was a backward system. And that's where the really impetus to kind of kick off doing something of my own started. And the passion was always there. There's just literally no direction. So I've never really had a mentorship. So a lot of it has been trial and error. My path has been a lot of failure. And I think some of those greatest lessons you really learn from kind of stumbling and falling on your face and really trying to figure out, where do you go from here? You kind of rely on some of the tools that you've gained and life experiences, and then that's forges and kind of gives you to the next step and kind of really be present in that moment. So it was a lot of trying to go through the steps of figuring out life. And, I think everybody here on this call is still walking through that process. And whether you're on the side presenting or, kind of watching this, you're really trying to kind of have your sense of self within this space and time and in this road. And, college is A level, but then there's life, and life is a whole lot bigger than that. So, you really try to figure out what the next steps are going to be. And sometimes you just have to bet on yourself. So, so for me, failure is what led me here. And then really trying to be the one to control my time and my movement and get back to the things that I'm really passionate about.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Really great insights. So Justin, tell us about your path to building a business, and how did you land on that journey after your time at UC Santa Barbara?
So I think like everybody here, I was always interested in business. I jumped into the TMT program during the first year of it. So before it even became a certificate, and I wish I was 2 years behind simply because that program was the best fit for me. Coming out, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was interested in business. Law school was kind of like a safe option. It's a landing pad for some people who don't know what they want to do, but have talent with certain things. And so I looked at that with the idea of going into real estate, corporate development strategy, and finance. And then the recession hit. So I got into law school, and then there was this massive recession that mattered a whole lot to the classes that I shared law school and undergrad with. And so after that, I essentially had to take whatever job I could find. And so I started litigating. And through litigating, I litigated as a construction defect attorney for the first year, a small firm in Los Angeles. And then I leveraged that into, kind of a big law firm that wasn't massive in size, but had international offices. And I worked as a corporate and bankruptcy litigator for 4 years. And, I really learned a lot, but it wasn't something I was passionate about at all. I mean, I could apply my passion to it, but that wasn't where I wanted to be. And so after about 4 years of working there and really trying to understand that aspect of law and business, I joined Bank of America. They're a team that specializes in lending to private practice healthcare professionals. And so it was a big pivot because I went from basically litigation, where I was doing technical legal work, to sales. But it was also tremendously helpful because you end up learning how all of these people build businesses within a larger business, And so from there, I met a ton of connections in Southern California and throughout the country. And I was approached by my current firm to come join almost as a partner to help build this business. And so, we work with dentists a lot because they're transactional, and we're expanding that to all private practice healthcare professionals that still exist outside of hospital systems. And then I got my broker's license because we'll do those deals too, right? So the ultimate goal is to expand. You take one business and you start to build on top of it, and you continue to poke around, and you have tons of failures and tons of pitfalls and whatnot, but you just kind of keep trudging through it, and it will ultimately grow into something that is something unique and special. And so I'm on that path right now.
Thank you so much, Justin. Markelle, can you tell us about your path to building a business and how you landed on that path beyond UC Santa Barbara?
Sure. So it's great listening to everyone. I can relate to so much, even though my business is really different. I heard a lot of common themes among us, that desire for autonomy and independence and sort of controlling our destiny, having flexibility, and also leverage. So even when you don't really know what the next is, being able to take advantage of opportunities and then leverage those for the next. And I think that's really what entrepreneurship really is all about. So for me, I knew I wanted to start a business when I was in high school, but I didn't know what that was going to be or anything. What I did know early on is that I'm not like Brian, I'm not a full-time day job W-2 person for life. That's not who I am. And I knew that early on, and I just knew that wasn't going to work for me. When I was at UCSB, actually, that's when I sort of started as an entrepreneur, if you want to call it that. I started typing papers and editing papers for different people. And I was cash-based. I got cash, burritos, and beer. So that was, I Freebirds burritos, by the way. And so that's when I started, I used what I had, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can, Arthur Ashe. I had a typewriter, I knew how to type, and I was a good writer and editor. So I used those skills to start in college. I did go on to graduate school. I thought I was going to maybe be a therapist or something like that, they're mostly entrepreneurs, they're mostly private practice. And so I did start with that. And I did get a full-time job, which was really hard for me, but I always had a side gig. I was always doing one-on-one coaching. I was always speaking. I was always teaching classes, resume writing, whatever. I was always doing those kind of things as a career counselor. And I wrote a business plan. And I had my business plan in a yellow folder, and I kept that folder with me everywhere I went for years. And then one day I just said, my boss said, hey, what are your plans, for the future? I said, actually, I'm giving you my 30 days right now. I'm out of here. And so with my business plan and a 30 days notice, I launched my business, Futures in Motion. And over time, my business model has evolved and it's changed. It's been full-time, it's been part-time. It's been me, started, like I said, cash-based. I have an S Corp now, and it allows me to do a lot of what I love doing as a business owner. One of the things that I love the most about being in business is it's the flexibility, it's the autonomy. I get to do what I want, how I want to do it. I've been able to adjust my model based off of my preferences, but also life circumstances. Life happens, and to be able to have my business support me throughout that has been pretty awesome. I can work from anywhere. The kind of business that I have, the way I've set it up, I can work from anywhere in the world. I have a global client base. I help people all over the world. And my virtual assistant is actually in Florida. So my business is virtual, and it allows me that. And I just want to end with one final thought on that. For those who are thinking about starting a business, I would encourage you to give some thought to the type of business model you want, because I don't know, for me, when I first thought about having a business, I thought I had to have this huge, multi-million-dollar business with all these employees. And that really requires a whole lot of focus and a lot of energy, more than what I really wanted to do in support of my lifestyle and my goals. So there's so many different possible ways to be an entrepreneur. And it doesn't have to be that big, Steve Jobs, Amazon, dream. It can be for you if that's what you want, but it doesn't have to be. So kind of give some thought to the model that you want so that you can take the next steps in support of what that is, also knowing that you can change your mind at any time.
Thank you so much, Markelle. Thanks everyone for sharing so much great insights on starting a business. Essentially, starting a business with whatever you have and not waiting for the perfect time is really, really a great angle. And then with that, I do want to also welcome Karen Spicer. She's just joined us. Give her an opportunity to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I had some trouble getting in. But it was so wonderful to hear everyone's introductions, and I'm really excited to be here with everyone. I am a film and television costumer, and I also do hair and makeup artistry, and then I freelance as a creative director. And I have done some other business. I've had some other business ventures in the past. I I laughed when I wrote 15 plus years. I'm like, are we really that old? Have we really like, well, a few of us graduated in 2006 and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, I feel like we're so like mature at this point, you know, and you think like, I didn't graduate that long ago, but yeah, you did. And you started some businesses, and a lot of, you know, you have started really successful companies. And so I'm excited to be here now. And I definitely want to ask you let's see, I have one moment. Just give me 1 second. I have, let's see. Okay, so Brian, I wanted to ask you, what do you define as the core characteristics it takes to build a successful business, and what challenges do you have that you've had to overcome on your own journey in being an entrepreneur?
So many. So it's good to see you, Karen, by the way.
Hello.
Hey.
I feel like I just dropped in here. So
It's perfect. It's perfect. And actually, like, I loved what you shared, Markelle, because I did homework for money too at one point, especially in high school. And I'm just thinking like one of the core characteristics are like belief, audacity, and hustle. And so that I've seen in all entrepreneurs. Now that I invest, though, I tend to look at entrepreneurs a little differently. I think there's like market risk, there's technology risk, and then there's founder risk. And founder risk is the one that I can most control. And so when I look at founders, I tend to look for humility. Like, how do they take feedback? Are they willing to accept new ideas, you know, that they can apply to their business, and willing to try things? So they have this willingness to risk and fail. Will they admit that they might be wrong? I want them to believe that they're right, but like, will they admit that they might be wrong? Because you get to be flexible as an entrepreneur. Like, my most successful things, like the first idea I tried on it did not work, you know, and my most successful side hustle, like I took 5 swings at it before I got it to work. And I was just like very committed. I gave myself 6 months, a certain amount of money. And I was like, hey, look, if I can't figure it out in 6 months, then we're going to let it go. But it took 5 solid swings. And so that audacity. And then when I think for me personally, as an entrepreneur, there's some things I've had to learn that I wish I could tell my 24-year-old entrepreneur self these things. So things like being more critical of my ideas and listening to really, really smart people. Like, you know, when I was 24 and I would raise money and people didn't like my business, you know, my ego got involved and I would think, I want to prove you wrong. Today, I'm like, man, if I'm talking to a bunch of really smart people and I'm hearing the same thing, I might want to pause and listen and look at my business a little bit more critically. I've learned that like choosing a co-founder is really important. Like, I've been forced out of a very successful company before that I founded because I chose my co-founders wrong. That cap table was lopsided. The investors didn't have enough power to keep me in, right? And I had to deal with that pain, and it stopped me from starting a business for a long time. And so choosing co-founders like with high levels of integrity and hustle is incredibly important. And then like the biggest thing for me right now is, and Markelle touched on this a bit, like, what kind of company do I want to build? Because if I'm building like a side hustle or like a single person LLC company, I can build that any way I want. The moment I take money, I'm telling someone I'm aiming for like $100 million revenue business, you know, or I'm failing. And so in deciding even the company I'm running now, like that was a hard conversation for me and my co-founder to have at the beginning. Are you okay building something that does like $1 million a year or $100 million? We took the money. So when we hit 2 million in revenue and didn't feel like we can get to 100 million, we got to shift. Whereas if we didn't take the money, we could have been cool with 2 million. And so like jumping on that treadmill again, like it's something I've really had to think about. And I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs about that, like really think about the money you're taking because of what the statement you're saying, you know, when you take that money. And so those are some things I've definitely had to learn and overcome over my journey, during my journey. And like, I'm still in my journey. So, you know, talk to me in 5 years about how taking that money turned out this time around.
So just to go off of what you just said in terms of taking money. So there's a lot of people that see it as when you're starting a business, oh, I need to get capital, right? I need to go the venture capital route. What are your thoughts about like bootstrapping? and other ways of acquiring funding?
I love bootstrap businesses personally. Like if I have the money to fund it and I believe in it, because I love the flexibility of it. A month in, I can decide I don't want to do this and walk away. Because like passion does wane, and your passions become different things along the course of your journey. Or you decide, man, I thought I was excited about that business and I'm not. I think at the end of the day, though, like there's a bunch of sacrifices you end up having to make to build a billion-dollar business. And if you're taking money from investors, like they're expecting $1 billion. And I think what happens is a lot of entrepreneurs don't actually understand that. Like they think, hey, if I take this money and I 5X my investors' money, they'll feel great about that. But that is not how the model works. And so most people don't actually know the treadmill or the rat race they're signing up for. And so I would take the money if I felt like the money would truly shorten my outcome by like 2 to 4 years. If I can move like 2 to 4 years faster, then that's what I would do. But the wealthiest people I know did not get there by giving up big chunks of their company at a discount early on. They bootstrapped it. And then when they sold it for $1 billion, they own like 70% of it. And so like it's a different model. And the further you are from San Francisco, the more people bootstrap. So it's not the only way to do it, but it is that model, and it's built for them to make money, not for you to be the happiest. And it's it's something to weigh. I hope I'm answering the question great. There's nothing wrong with that model. Some businesses need money, at that level, but most do not. And I've seen so many people fail because they took money, and if they didn't, they might have a successful company today.
Absolutely. And I think that speaks to just understanding your business and knowing what you need as a business owner specifically. And I know that Markelle spoke to that as well. And understanding that my business is, what I am putting into it. So for example, your goal is to have like multi-million-dollar business, whereas somebody else's goal might not be that. So just making sure that you understand what your unique goals are and what your go-to-market strategy is for your specific business is super important. Exactly. And so with that, I definitely wanted to ask Stephen, how did you develop and define your unique business prior to going to market?
Great question. I think for me, it was relationships and understanding my story. So I think when you think about how you structure a company, how you kick things off for yourself and really try to find the necessary steps to progress and find whatever you determine whatever you define your success to be, you have to understand who you are. So for me, I think anytime you think about branding, you're thinking about storytelling, and how you tell that story is kind of what determines your success in business, right? So for me, my brand is being a father, being a feminist, being a mentor, being an activist. And I understand that now more because of the people in my life, and that would be my wife and my 2 daughters. So when I tabled the tech company and started back my writing, which is like a 20-year journey. I remember leaving high school at 17 and being talented in writing, I took it for granted. So I remember kind of dismissing the thought of like, what am I going to do with a writer? Am I going to write a book? No, I'm not going to write a book. And that's the first thing that I did, like years later, just to kind of exercise a passion of mine. So becoming a father, and specifically to daughters, I really had to reassess my position in my life. And I had to really think about what kind of things was I preparing for them. And that turned into a story. And that story led me to creating a book where I wanted to have dialogue between parents and between kids, really tackling things that are uncomfortable conversations, whether you're talking about, women's empowerment or being a feminist or sexual and gender identity, anti-bullying, mental health. I wanted to say that if I was not here, what kind of lessons am I leaving for my kids? And then that even is looking at Generation Z and Generation Alpha, most of the people that's on this call, on this chat, and saying, so what is the direction of your life and what is it that you want to leave behind? And a big part of that is taking a really altruistic approach and having a contribution to their impact, right? So for us, we just kind of bridge generations, right? So being millennials, being Gen Xers, whatever you fall in, we're influenced by the previous generation and we're influenced by the current generation, right? So I'm old enough to know that the World Wide Web did not exist, and then it did exist, right? So, and bridging that gap, my thought process went into, again, for the branding and the storytelling. So you're constantly evolving, you're constantly getting information, and that transition for me happened as a father. And it solidified more of my identity, because now I know that whatever I create from a career perspective, profession, personal, it all impacts the other. No matter what it is that I'm doing, I'm going to influence my kids. No matter what it is I'm doing and how much money I make, it's to really say, how am I making, that path easier for them? And, taking a blueprint, and I say to my daughters, you can retrace it or redraw it, right? Crumble it up, or see how the lines connect and say, I don't like that there. And they kind of figure out. So I'm just kind of giving, emotional deposits and buckets for them. So when you understand your story, you understand what direction you're headed in. So when you think about the most successful companies out there, you think about American Express, right? Their story is luxury. It's exclusivity. It's invite. It's concierge. It's service, right? When you think about Jordan Brand, you think about iconic, you think about cool, collectibles, right? You have so many people trading Jordans. They've made that a business by themselves, right? As an entrepreneur, saying, hey, this is an exclusive color wave, and it's not out there, so I have access to that, and now I'm reselling it for $5,000. Supply and demand, right? So you're going to basic business principles. So you think about Toyota and Honda, longevity, right? You think about reliability, right? So Yeezys, pop culture, you're just finding what's the story. And that's typically what people are going to buy into, because that's the authentic conversation that you're having. How you tell that story goes into the marketing, and how effective that is on being able to kind of highlight certain features and benefits of that business or that product or that service. So I think when you understand your brand, you understand your story, you really have a way of simplifying and making things a little bit more convenient for what your life is like. You have to really figure out your fit, find your voice, whatever your special skill is, shape it, hone it, then offer it to the world. And this world, in the case, the world is, your customer. So really think about taking the moments of your life and those experiences and figuring out how those pieces fit together. So everyone on this call is one of one, right? So nobody's going to tell your story the way that you tell your story. So I think that authenticity allows you to really shape what it is. Of course, within this day and age, we have social networking, social media, like, TikTok and Instagram, and people becoming millionaires from catching lightning in a bottle, but that's not a sustainable model, right? It's luck of the draw. It's really, you stumbled upon something and maybe riding a trend, but trends don't last, right? So, if you're trying to bank it on, getting that quick fix, it's really, really rare. So it's really going to come down to the work, and kind of mixing out with some of your talent and really kind of understanding who you are as an individual. And then you could try to see if you can kind of monetize that process, whether, again, it's the hustles that Brian and Markelle talked about between, taking something that was a skill set and being able to say, hey, I can apply it to this certain situation and kind of have this side piece that I've actually was able to test my thesis, right? That's really what they did. They had an idea and they had an application of that idea, and somebody paid them for that idea. So I think when you understand those things and really understand who you are and you understand what your story is like, I think that kind of breeds into the, the space of really trying to develop what your product or your business is going to be.
That is very, very true. And I think personally too, that resonated with me very much so, because I know personal brand wise, which this is a great segue into talking about personal brand. Personal brand is so important, as well as business brand. And I feel like I definitely believe in the zone of genius and working within your zone of genius and knowing what it is that you do well, but also what naturally fits you. And I know for me, it took me a while to embrace the fact that when people see me, they see like fashion, beauty, or they would relate me with those things. And then so finally I was like, you know what, I'm just going to embrace it and go for it and start businesses around those things. So I definitely agree with you, Stephen. Like, you have to know your story. You have to know honestly too, how people fit you into certain spaces. You know, like with you, Stephen, I know you from going to school with you, and you've always been very creative. You've been a great writer. And so like, I definitely fit you in that space, and you're in that space, you know, like you're following your mission and your gifts. And so, and the same with the other panelists that I went to school with, like you're all following in the path that I definitely saw like very early on. And I'm very excited to meet you, Markelle. And I wanted to ask you this question about personal branding. So how much do you think the role of a personal brand plays in the success of your business brand?
That's a great question. It's something that I spend a lot of time with, actually. So as a career counselor and a career coach, I work with people one-on-one on their personal brands. And I also, within that, I work with creative entrepreneurs. So I talk with them about their personal brand and their business brands. But I talk about it from the lessons learned the hard way over the years of being a business owner and entrepreneur. I saw this quote this morning that I want to share. I thought it was perfect. So as it relates to personal brand, at the end of the day, all we really have is our reputation. So I thought that was perfect. For me, personal branding, it's the pillar of business success. So without a strong personal brand, how can you really succeed? Brian mentioned integrity, and that's exactly what it is. I'm a service-based business. And so for me, my personal brand is a value differentiator. So you have two career coaches right next to each other. Why would someone hire me over someone else? It's because of the brand that my personal brand and what people know about me, what they think that they're going to get if they give me their money. You know, I'm the owner of Futures in Motion, and people don't distinguish Markelle from Futures in Motion. We're all one entity, you know, and so most of my business comes from directly either word of mouth or indirectly word of mouth. So someone needs a counselor or coach, they say, call Markelle, or they happen to go on my website, or they see a webinar, what have you, then they go check me out, they see my reviews, and they come to me. So it's my brand is very important. I'm very clear about who I serve. I'm very clear about how I serve them, how I want them to feel as a result of having worked with me. And that informs everything that I do. It informs what I write about. It informs what I speak about. It informs who I align with, my partners, my collaborators, the people that I affiliate with. It informs my business model and my operations. So it's not just about getting a great fancy website. You know, back when I started, I'm much more seasoned than you. We had business cards and brochures, you know, but it's much more than the collateral. And what people tend to do is they move to getting the collateral without really knowing the message that they're trying to convey. They get all in the weeds of doing TikTok reels and all of that, and they spend a whole bunch of time creating content, but they don't know who they're trying to serve and how they want to serve them, and they waste a lot of time and energy and money and not getting any business doing all those kind of things. So being clear and consistent with my messaging and then backing it up with exceptional quality and expert service is how I run my business. So what that does for me and what that can do for any entrepreneur is you get sales are easier. You get better qualified clients, customers. You get better and consistent business, and you can charge what your value is. You can charge what your true value is, and you don't have to compete on price. You know, competing on price is a sure way to go all down the way to the bottom, and you're going to get out of business. So if your only differentiator is how your price and you're cheaper than everybody else, you're going to flame out of business really quickly. So making an investment in my personal brand and how that informed my business brand has really, really, really helped me to sustain my business. And it's allowed me to have fun, you know, in my business, because I'm working with the kinds of people that get me, I get them, we're aligned, and we just have a great time achieving their goals together. And so it's been really gratifying for me when I really started focusing on that. My assistant, people who support me, they're bought into the vision. We're all working together as a unit. We're in flow, and it's great. That doesn't mean there aren't any problems. There's always ups and downs, but net, it's been really awesome. So for me, personal branding is probably the most important thing that you want to focus on along as it aligns with your business strategy.
Yes, that is very true. And I will say, as a seasoned panelist, I do remember also passing out business cards. So I'm there with you, Markelle. And I do remember, times before like Instagram and all of that, where you had to hit the pavement, when you wanted to, like when I first started doing makeup artistry, I had a business card and I was passing it out, and that's just how you got things done. And there was no Instagram or anything like that. I didn't have a website. I had photographs like in a portfolio, and I would show people my work. And that's how I got started in that regard. So I definitely agree with you. Like nowadays it's, let's go straight to TikTok and let's, go to IG, but you definitely, a brand, I always tell people when I help people with like image development, brand development, is that it's not your logo. Your logo is just, it's a signature that people might recognize your brand by, but that's not your brand. Like the essence of your brand is, like you said, your personality, it's who you are. It's a lot of what you bring to the table. Just like each of you have said, authenticity, a big part of having a brand is authenticity. Yes. Markelle?
I just wanted to add, and this is sort of summarizing what the other two have already said, and Justin will probably be able to support this in his comments. Business strategy is business strategy. It doesn't matter if it was 50 years ago or 50 years in the future, the principles for success in business haven't changed. And so we have new vehicles, TikTok is just a vehicle, and 10 years from now, there's going to be something else. We, like you said, we were passing out business cards before Facebook, before Instagram, before YouTube, all of those kinds of things. People had businesses. So you do yourself a favor and learn business strategy and solid marketing principles, and then choose how you're going to implement them in your business.
Absolutely.
Can I add one more quick thing to what Markelle said?
Of course. Yes.
There's something she said that I think is really important. I don't want it to get lost, that like personal brand isn't just like what's on TikTok and Instagram. It's like what someone says about you when they do the background check. So when like Justin calls my last lawyer and says like, hey, how do you feel about this business I'm going to bring on? They say like, man, they paid their bills on time every time. It's like what people say about me when I'm not in the room is also part of my personal brand.
Absolutely. It's definitely how you're perceived, for sure. And I think too, a lot of times you might say, and I don't know if any of you can chime in, but maybe you were going down a path and someone said, hey, I kind of see you going this direction, or I feel like you're a better fit. You would be perfect and you would be so successful if you were doing this. Has any of that ever happened to you all earlier in your career? And if you can just briefly like talk about that.
For sure. I'll do mine real fast. I'm like a phenomenal public speaker. And so like I'm constantly being put in public speaking roles. Like even at the TNP program, I was like the speaker at graduation. And every time I work somewhere, they're like, this is a great talent of yours. And there is nothing for that here. Like we can't use that talent. And I wish I would have like listened to that sooner and found more places to apply it. Like, I think it would have grown faster. It would open up more opportunities, but like people were saying it constantly and I just like could not hear it clearly, or I was running from it because it was like so far out of my comfort zone and my box that it just like rubbed against my insecurities. It's like, that's an example for me in my life that's been real.
So confidence. So when someone sees something in you and they're like, this is your zone of genius, this is where you shine, that might be an indication for you to like step outside of your comfort zone and say, hey, let me try this. Like, this could be like, my ticket to being extremely successful, whether it be a business or just in terms of like mindset, growth, personal development, all of those things.
If I could chime in real quick. So out of all the jobs that I worked, retail, customer service, there, without fail, at some point in time during that journey, I would have whatever customer that I'm interacting with say, hey, I feel like you should be doing something else. And I would just kind of smile like, yeah, I know, me too. But But in understanding that, I never explored it, right? I just took it as a compliment and it made me feel good and, made an emotional deposit for that moment. But I never really put the work in to really kind of figure out what that was, right? And I think that's part of the journey. I mean, because some things take time. You have to get seasoned. It has to go through a process again of some of the people you meet. And then, it's kind of like when somebody tells you something all the time and you have a deaf ear to it, but then that one person says it and then you're like, oh yeah. But then that person's like, I've been telling you for like 15 years. So
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
really getting into a place where some of that has to align because now you're ready to hear it, right? And you're ready to kind of have a practical application of that. And then you can say, let me put some movement behind that. Because talent again is not going to be there. I'm sure you guys have heard this. What is it? Talent beats hard work beats talent. If talent doesn't work hard, right? So you really kind of have to understand that it's really a mix of all the things that you will go through in this life, and there's really not one space. Somebody actually in the chat session had a mention of, they've been doing something for X amount of years and now listening to this conversation that we're having right now, they're inspired to it. So I found myself always reinventing myself. And now closer to 40, I feel like I'm just getting started. I really feel that things are starting to align because I'm starting to pay attention more, then I'm starting to apply and I'm starting to take ownership of my personal brand. I'm starting to really invest in me and grow my knowledge base so that I have a knowledge gap so that I can be of value when I am sharing information, and that it does give you some credibility and, some instant buy-in, right? So, it's really paying attention to everything that you go through in this life and not dismissing it, right? So I guess just listen, whether that's the universe speaking to you or whatever you believe in, or again, that right relationship and right person and that network. But it's never too late to get started. And also it's okay to fail. Failure is kind of where you learn lessons from.
Absolutely. It's definitely never too late. You can always reinvent yourself and you can always start something new. And definitely don't be afraid to fail, because as we see today, I had technical difficulties, but here I am. You just got to pick yourself up and try again. Never give up on yourself. So, so as we're getting into advice, right? I have a question for you, Justin. So what advice would you, how would you advise today's new graduates on how to build a business, and what are the biggest pitfalls to avoid at various stages of your career?
So I actually do a lot of advising recent graduates from dental, medical, and other specialty programs. And so one thing that's really important for them, and I think is also very applicable to our graduates today, is student debt and knowing how to manage that. And so getting that under control as soon as possible is really important. And that ties really into, and this depends on the industry, but you need, or I would think that you should go work for a big player, no matter how much. Like Brian talked about his time in accounting and how he hated it. I worked at a big law firm for 4 years and grinded it out. And there's a few things that you learn there. One is like training. And two is that those organizations will give you a leg up on student debt and knocking that down to a reasonable level so you can clear out headspace to make really good financial decisions, right? I think that is the key thing that's probably going to impact people in our community and specifically at Santa Barbara, and then also people at Santa Barbara in general. Number two would be, I would stick with big cities to start. And so find those big organizations in the larger cities, and the cities have personalities and they're going to leave this imprint on you that is going to help you later on, right? Like New York is amazing for finance. San Francisco is amazing for tech. Los Angeles is amazing for entertainment. As you select those jobs and you start hunting, go to that city, right? Don't apply for jobs on the East Coast while you are at home. You're going to have to go and hustle and make it and put yourself out there, and that sucks. It's hard, right? But you will figure it out, and as long as you keep at it, you'll find a place, you'll land, right? And if you don't land at the big spot the first time, you can always leverage your way into it. And like this, trust me, this only applies for certain places. Like tech is there right now, law, finance, consulting, these big business organizations. This advice doesn't apply to all of that, right? And then depending on your personality type, right? Take a couple of personality tests, when you first start school and when you in school, and then realize like all of that's going to be thrown on the trash, like in like 5 or 7 years, because you're going to change as a person. You're not going to be the same person. I'm not the same person as I was at 30. Like that guy was crazy. He was hilarious and like brilliant. And now I'm smarter, even more handsome. But you do change over time, and understand that you want to set yourself up for success. And so do the hard things, the really, really hard things, the boring things first. Stick with the harder major if you're going to stick with the harder major that you can, really grind it out. No disrespect to Santa Barbara, but I learned how to study in law school, right? Like I actually learned how to study when I studied for the bar, and I realized that I'd been like sandbagging it for my entire life. And so do those hard things, get good at them now, and that's going to really carry and provide some deep headwinds later on. And then the other piece is that Santa Barbara is tremendously diverse. We have a beautiful community here, but get out of that community and step in, have a foot in every single world that you can. And so that's going to provide you with depth in terms of how you can sell yourself across the spectrum, right? And that's really what the most important thing is going to be, because in many organizations and having your own business, I think it's in all organizations, like being able to generate income or having the imprint of, hey, this person can generate income for us, gives you so much leverage and power. And then finally, don't think that this happens overnight. Don't look at the success stories of, like, let's say Snapchat, and say, you know what, I can build $1 billion business in 3 years. Like, that's not realistic. If you dig into the business stories of all of these people that are really wealthy and successful and famous at early ages, like, they came from families, they came from money, they came from the know-how that put them in that space. Like Drake, you can see Drake in like videos when he was 12, 8, right? Like, you're not going to get there if you don't have it, and that's okay. You just have to put the time in, and your time will come. It may just come later. But the biggest pitfall is like not putting the time in and then getting frustrated, throwing up your hands and saying, oh, well, I hate this, like, therefore I'm going to stop doing it. Like, don't stop. That's the point at which you're actually going to get somewhere. Like, the highest level of discomfort is the best level. That's where you want to sit. I have a headache 24 hours a day, and that's okay, because I know in 5 years, like, my practice and my businesses are going to be in a better place.
I love that. That is the best advice ever. Because too, I feel like when you're in school, and I'm sure all of you can relate to this, you're prepared in a way for the real world, but there's just nothing that prepares you 100% for when you graduate and you go outside of the bubble, especially the nice, beautiful bubble of UCSB. There's just nothing that prepares you to network with other people who might not have your same familiar background, and you have people from all over the world. I know when I did work in tech in the Silicon Valley, I was working with people that were from Asia, like all over the world, the country, the Caribbean, Africa, everywhere. So you have all of these different cultures coming together. You have people that speak different languages, have different customs, and you have to find a way, especially as a business leader, or just even if you were, when you were an employee before you started your business, you have to find a way to communicate and work together and build and network and be able to come together as a team. And I do want to speak to all of you, because this is Black History Month. Happy Black History Month, everyone. And because this is also the inaugural Black History Month, not only the event, but the inaugural event for our Black Community Center. And I know that a lot of us in the Black community at UCSB were very, very active in making sure that our voices were heard, that we had proper resources that we needed, and we just always came together like a family. And that's one thing that I definitely love about UCSB. But when you get into the working world, a lot of times you might not be in spaces where it feels familial, or you might, be in spaces where you might feel isolated, and so I definitely wanted to speak to each of you about what are some ways that you think that business leaders can help shape more equitable and diverse workspaces definitely in your companies, but also in general. What do you think that business leaders can do to make their spaces more equitable for all employees, specifically Black employees?
I'll kick it off. Be an advocate for gender and sex equality, right? So a lot of companies kind of scout and hire from the same talent pools, right? So there's a lot of people that get overlooked. And depending on the company, they're kind of hiring the same applicant, right? It's the same person, the same type, whether it's from a certain demographic or educational background or organization. It kind of equates to an element of privilege. So I challenge business leaders to kind of go against type and have an open mind when recruiting, or find ways to create pathways, right, to mentor kids and at an early age and turn an opportunity into like a proven recipe and kind of create a talent pool. So, as business leaders, I think from a quick list, I'd say be a culture changer, wage transparency, close the wage gap, hire more women, promote more women, speak out against abuse of power, dominance. That tends to happen, favoritism, from a male perspective. So, a lot of these Fortune 500 companies or these really, really successful tech companies, they all look the same and are all part of a percent of space economically that a lot of people won't reach. So it's almost like withholding information, right? So I'm a kid from Compton. So, when you kind of go back to like the 90s and early 2000s, when you think about individuals that there was always a critique of people making it out and never coming back, right? So I think that conversation is not really about the fact that they never came back and that they weren't criticized for living, right? For escaping means, right? That the critique happened that there was not a pathway at helping others get out of that situation. So I only literally made it out because my mom decided to relocate us, right? My mom and my grandmother from Compton to Central Valley here in Fresno. My brother was a little bit more impressionable than me, is 3 years older than I am. And she's like, I don't want that for my kids. So when you think about the pathway, it's how can you help somebody? Like what information can you pass on that allows somebody to say, I think I can, or I know a way out, right? So for me, like I said, transferring from Fresno City to UC Santa Barbara as a film major and having no mentorship or pathway to get to where I wanted to get to as a screenwriter, I had to figure it out, right? So that would be the knock on myself. That would be the knock on not seeking certain things out, but then you can't ask what you don't know, right? So for me, I'd say create a pathway, right? Have a way to that you can kind of bring people forward and then, allow opportunities that you can create. That is another organic space. And now you have more people at the table, not clamoring to get a seat, not saying fake it till you make it, becoming a have not to have got. Like you really have to kind of impart some of that information. And this kind of conversation today helps that, right? Where other people in other spaces, when they're always Googling, the top, business founders or successful individuals, they're kind of imparting information. So you always have people chiming in, listening to like a Gary, Vaynerchuk, listening to, individuals that have been immensely successful in their space. And again, you find the common thread of what people are talking about from principles and characteristics and, things that are behaviors that you can pattern and model after. And I think that's something that can open up, right? So the ability to, focus on BIPOC, not just be reactionary like people are right now. DEI is such a big conversation now because people are reacting. Why hasn't it always been a conversation, right? And I think in this space, it's the ability to say, let's design something that allows people to reach a little bit higher and further.
I would like to. This one's hard, honestly. When I saw this question, I was like, I'm not really sure how I would really approach this. And so what came to mind for me, and if I think back to being at UCSB, I was in the dorms, and I elected to be in the floor, that was the multicultural focus. So I'm a sociology major, and I always have an interest in how people sort of form community and navigate through life and community. And the reality is that all of us naturally are going to gravitate towards people that are like us. So they look like us, they have similar backgrounds, what have you, and that's what we do naturally. So we have to intentionally move outside of that. And I think it's important to recognize that and to understand it. But really, leading by example is as a small business owner, for me, leading by example is the best thing that I can do. And it's more than just leading, it's the way I live my life. It's the way that you live your life, and focusing on people, focusing on understanding how people are same or different, and taking care of the people. It's with your personal branding, you have to be similar to that. You have to be intentional about creating opportunities, and you have to be intentional about who you interact with. And if it's a way of life, it'll come naturally to you. So example, recently, I started learning Korean. And so that has expanded even more so the people that I relate to and how I relate to different people. And it's provided a pathway to opportunities, not only for myself, but for everyone that I interact with. So it's not about, like Stephen said, it's not only about just reacting to what's going on right now, but it's being intentional about creating opportunities for yourself and others across the time.
I love hearing other people's thoughts on this. I was like, I'm just going to sit on the sideline on this question because I really didn't like it either. And I didn't like it because like it felt like I put the responsibility or the onus on someone else. Like, how do I get them to change? And I don't think there are. I think they're going to keep doing what they do. I think that like when they start losing money because of doing what they do, then they'll change. And so when I looked at it from a place of responsibility, I thought, like, how am I responsible for the fact that this is how the system operates? Like, have I been helping people that look like me? Like Justin, I'm going to use you again. Justin's not my lawyer. And I'm responsible for that. Like he could be, but he's not. Like I'm paying some white dude in Silicon Valley. So like they're getting all the money. So then like all that money could be going to him. Now he's successful in his firm, right? I'm successful in my business and I'm helping other people that look like me. And so I'm responsible for not helping Justin out, which would have helped out the next 5 Justins. And so I tend to look at ways like that, like where's my money going? Who's my accountant? Who's my lawyer? Who's my doctor? Because really money speaks more than anything else. And I think the other thing is like, when I am in a position of power, like what is my relationship with giving people feedback like? I think that like we're letting a lot of people who look like us waste time. Like we're not telling them their ideas are bad and that they should really think about it before they go to try that. Like back up, like someone has thought about that before. It hasn't worked. You should like, you're really smart, but you're not that smart. Like someone failed at that. Think about why they failed. Or I hear this thing all the time. Like in the VC space, I hear this from Black entrepreneurs all the time, that Black venture capitalists don't invest in Black entrepreneurs. And that's not true. They just didn't invest in your idea, and you should pause and really think about why they didn't, because I think we make a lot of excuses. So like, I look at like, how can I sharpen the talent that's coming through to really make them better so that it creates more and more space. And then the last thing is, because I do talk to like white leadership about this, and they think that we're shy for some reason. And I think there's this thing where like, we're like, for some reason, we don't speak out as much in companies as we could. And I think there's some like shared responsibility we have for like being a little bit more bold in our business practices, bold in the ideas that we want to, pursue, and like really fighting like we see other people fight, and being unapologetic for that. I saw a question come through about like, what's your favorite book? Mine's is like The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I think we care so much that we hold back. And if we just like put that aside for a bit, like we would take bigger swings. And so again, like when I read the question, I was like, how am I responsible for it? And those are the pieces I feel like we actually can control. And then when we start building the business units and it really starts impacting the dollars, then they'll be like, I should look over here for my next talent wave. Justin, I'm curious, I saw your hand go up. Go for it.
No, I this is a hard question, but it also excites me, right? Because it makes people confront all of these really nasty issues. Like, you're never going to get rid of bias, right? Like, people are going to hire their friends, and unless you don't even have to have the same, you know, coloring, but like, you need to be able to speak that walk to be able to roll with those people, right? And so that goes to being able to basically code switch. And like, I know it's a negative thing, but like, who cares, right? Like, this is your money, this is your career, figure it out and play the game until you don't have to figure it out and play their game. And yeah, it's the difficulty of the question is like, we shouldn't put responsibility on somebody else. It's on you. Like, there's so much information out there today that you can become an expert in like 2 years on really nuanced areas, as long as you have the underpinning and whatnot, based on like internet research. You need, like, you don't need a degree, but you need a degree, right? You need a degree for the network and the socialization and all of those things, but it's on you to develop yourself, to make yourself the most attractive candidate possible. And you have to compete with other people. And you have to compete with other people with nepotism, and they live closer, or they go to the racquetball club with the other people, right? But it doesn't, like, you're not going to change that by having a dialogue over it. And so I think the 3 steps would be like, you have to forge the relationships within those like work communities. You get into leadership roles, even though those aren't really valuable until you can actually control the conversation and dialogue. And so that's going to have to be you making yourself a rainmaker, really important in that business. And then I'll share a piece of advice that's probably a little controversial, but my dad was asking me, and he's a neurosurgeon. He's done relatively well, and he was on a board of directors with a bunch of probably white guys, right? And so they were giving him a hard time because he didn't know the language, he didn't know what he's doing, and he was like, should I continue on this path? Should I continue doing this because it feels like the right thing? And I think a lot of the times we talk about doing the right thing rather than the thing that's going to be most beneficial to us, and that isn't unethical, right? There's a difference between the morality and what's ethically right. And I told him, I was like, what would one of these white guys do? And he's like, oh, they wouldn't put up with this shit at all. And I was like, there you go. And I was like, I have to go. And he's like, thank you. And I was like, send me a check. I did not charge my dad. I'm just kidding. But in reality, it's in terms of speaking out and asserting yourself. I wasn't good at it. I wasn't good at it until I put the work in and got really, really good at what I was doing to be able to assert myself more. And that may be an issue that we have in the community because we don't have family institutional knowledge in a lot of the things we're doing, right? We're learning for the first time. We don't have all of those things that are ingrained in us. So it may just take a little bit longer to get all of that experience to backlog. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, this is stupid, that's brilliant. And then everybody's going to start listening to you because like, wait a minute, you actually know what you're talking about. But that just takes time. And so in terms of asserting yourself at work, there's an element of you need to be cocky, you need to be arrogant, you need to be full of yourself because people will read that, and like that is part of your personal brand. And as we spoke before, it's not just about note cards, it's about authenticity, it's about integrity, but it's also about being an attractive person to speak with and talk to, right? And you can't do that if you don't know what you're talking about. So I think in terms of that, you have to build yourself up, and then you become responsible for building the network, and you become responsible for building the community, and don't ask anybody for help. You may get lucky and find some people that are going to like jump on board and take all of the help you can get, but like it's on you. Because like we're 1 or 2 generations out and we are 12 generations behind. So that's your job.
I wanted to just, something really quick came to my mind as I was listening to Brian and Justin. I got real assertive when people start messing with my money. I started speaking up more for myself, so when their actions started messing with my money,
I will definitely say you have to be assertive. And by me working in film and television, which I'm at work right now, actually, which is why it's difficult to, I've never actually had to get on a Zoom at work. Usually I'm at home and I'm in the comfort of my space and everything. So trying to find a space that's quiet and controlled, it was kind of challenging today, but definitely a part of what I wanted to say, even in regards to that, is kind of owning your space, right? Like I had to like find a space where I could conduct this meeting, and it's asking questions, and it's, you know, being assertive. And being assertive is so important, especially in film and television. Like you have to be assertive. If you're not assertive, people will walk all over you. And it's an industry much like tech, many other industries, law, a lot of, you know, industries where it's a rat race, really, you know, like it's highly competitive. You have so many people that are highly talented, and you're in this space with people that are performing like day in and day out. In our case, it's 70 hours per week. You have all of these people that have been working in the industry for so long, and everybody wants to be seen as excellent. Everybody wants to be seen as talented. And so, especially for Black people, you have to like show up and you have to speak. And that was actually interesting that Brian said that he's heard that a lot of Black people aren't assertive from leadership, because that's the first time I've ever heard that. So I just learned something new. But I know definitely in my workspace, people are extremely assertive. And I know for me, I was a little bit more of like, you know, a quirky, fun, like nice girl. But then when I started working in this industry, I'm like, oh, wow, no, like I have to like be a lot tougher, a lot, you know, more direct in my communication, because otherwise, if you're not like that, then you're just going to get ran over and people are just not going to take you seriously. And I definitely think, well, I know for sure that being a business leader and then just working in business spaces, you have to make sure that people take you seriously. And especially as a woman, and especially as a Black woman. And is there anyone else that had anything else that they wanted to add to that part of the conversation? Because we've reached the end of this wonderful dialogue that we've been having. Is there anyone else that wanted to add anything else to the discussion?
I was just looking at the questions. I was making sure we were answering questions for people, and I think we hit everyone.
Yeah, I know there was a book where you said your book, which I have to read that book because I've heard a lot of great things about it. And I think the book that I shared was Atomic Habits by James Clear, which is basically, you know, setting up your time management, which, as you all know, running a business, you have to have time management, you have to have discipline. Especially, I know for me, I do, you know, run a business, and then I also work at a company. So I'm, I guess, side hustle professional, as they call it. But time management is extremely important. So like having those little habits that you do daily and creating systems is so important. And that book, I've learned a lot from that book. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah. I just wanted to share one thing. I was like looking at the questions, and I felt like a few of them were around like avoiding failure. I've been at this place for 20 years. How do I jump into that? I actually I don't think you can get around the fear of failure. Like failure hurts. You're going to be afraid of it. I think it's like, what are you more committed to? You're committed to your vision, or you committed to like the fear? And at some level, like my vision and what I want to accomplish gets to be bigger than any time conversation, any fear conversation, any self-doubt that I have. And like, I'm not the person today that I'll need to be for that business to succeed, but I'll become that along the way. So I think that all these skills, like I'm going to start to develop them as soon as I start pursuing whatever that division is, that vision is. But like the fear is going to be there. You just got to deal with it. Like have people around you that support you and believe in you, but the fear is not going to go away, and the pain's still going to hurt. The vision gets to be bigger then. Because I know that like long-term not pursuing your goal, that is way more painful than any failure to go through on the way of getting there. So I just wanted to make that clear, that it's still scary.
And there was also a comment or a question somebody asked, how do you avoid burnout? And how do you maintain a living wage when you're starting out?
You might not. You might not. Like, I think like you're gonna hustle at the beginning. It gets easier as you have people to delegate to and you outsource. You can outsource hella stuff on Upwork too. Like, people in the Philippines are very, very talented, and they'll do a lot for you for $5 an hour, and you buy a lot of time back. And like, if you want to know about that, I do that all the time. I have like 5 VAs at a time. So like, shoot me a DM about it to buy your time back. But like, at the beginning, like, I would just say, like, give yourself time, like give yourself 6 months. It's like, I have this amount of money, I have this amount of time. If I'm making $3 grand a month by that point, I'll keep going. If not, I'll go get a job. Like, give yourself solid milestones, because it will take some time, and you got to give yourself time to fail. Like, I wouldn't go at it like, oh, if it doesn't work in like 2 months, like, you will not figure it out in 2 months. Like, I've never seen anyone do it that quickly. You got to give yourself more time. And like, you don't have to live a lavish lifestyle during that period. Like, get a roommate, like, it's like, is the vision worth it? Then figure it out. I like, I swear, Justin's like jumping up, because like, go Justin. What do you got?
Oh, I don't know what it's like bootstrapping, right? Like, I came out during the recession, and I worked for $20 an hour until I found a law job. And that was pretty reduced for what I'd gone through in like the bar and whatnot. But one thing that's really important is, like, when you're analyzing these opportunities, and when I was making a pivot, I would have these ideas. Like, I went out and started my own law practice, or like was trying to do these sorts of things. And what was really important, this ties in, is like, what's this worth, right? Like, what's this business idea worth? Like, how much can you actually make doing this? And I think that there are so many people out there that are like, oh, well, I've got this idea. And it's like, that's a great idea. But at the end of the day, is that not just going to support you, but also the staff to make that work, and also give you the income that is worth all of that time and effort? And so really analyzing that question and digging into that would have saved me a bunch of time. And when you think about, hey, look, what's this opportunity worth in the long haul? Like, how can this build on other things that I'm doing? That's a good thing to consider.
Real quick, I know we're wrapping up. What I wanted to add was, this may sound holistic compared to the conversation we're having, but relative to the question that was being asked, don't forget about your mental health. Give yourself some grace in this process as you're building what you're building, and making attempts and failing miserably, and really, really big, being Icarus and getting your wings burned by the sun. Just, it's okay. It's okay, right? It's go through the process, feel how you feel, talk about it, include therapy and counseling within your conversation. When you want to get there to your plan, as far as not even just scrapping it, just think about the bigger picture. I'm a father of 2, so I'm more full-time dad and full-time husband than I am part-time employee and entrepreneur, right? So I get the scraps in my family, and that does affect me, because I want to say, how can I build and grow faster and grow faster and grow faster? And I feel like I'm trudging, right? I feel like I'm that train that's coal, and I'm just, and I'm building the tracks at the same time to make that next step. So a big part of it is really staying sane and staying grounded and rooted, and really in your self-belief, but also in the fact that it's okay not to be okay, right? So, that's really taboo, obviously, in our community, for BIPOC. We're getting better at it, because we're having more conversations, especially with the pandemic and telehealth, and being able to kind of anonymously, ask questions and seek help. But, take care of your mental as well, right? Because that's a component of how you're going to build your business, because obviously you need to be the leader and captain your ship, right? So a big part of that is, making sure that you can give some sound, guidance, and be okay with yourself, and be okay with being able to kind of inspire others. So how can you do that and expect to do that if you're not? So mental health, that's a component that I want to throw in there for.
Thank you, Stephen. I think that is a beautiful way to wrap up this session. That is so important. You definitely have to take care of yourself, and then also make sure that you take care of the people that are working for you, because at the core of every business is the people, right? So I thank you
I also-
guys so much. Thank you to each of the panelists for your wisdom, for your actionable insights. This was a beautiful session. I'm so happy I got to see all of you. And I'm going to pass on the baton to Cindy or Julie.
Hi, just wanted to add to the fantastic session that when you're think about the value of the business that you're bringing with the type of business that you desire to build. It's really, really key to sort of pivot in and create in long-lasting success. And I wanted to also take the opportunity to thank each one of you, Brian Martinez, Stephen Miles, Justin Morgan, Markelle Morris, and our wonderful moderator, Karen Spicer. Thank you so very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And also wanted to let everyone know that our keynote speaker is going to be session's going to be beginning at 12:30 p.m. So please feel free to log in and join in for that if you're not already registered. Dr. Jeffrey Stewart would be speaking. And with
Thank
that,
you.
just wanted to close out the panel and thank you so much, everyone, again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. You're so amazing, and best
Thank
wishes
you.
in your business and in life. And please keep in touch.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Bye,
Take care.
everyone.
Have a great weekend.